Collette, I am so thrilled to have you here to talk about education. And as you mentioned about being that educational conduit and what that really is for us, you also mentioned instilling tools. Are there specific tools that you use to help education really come together with the DEI understanding of the breadth, or is it, are there things that we still need to create to be tools? I'm not
Sure.
sure.
That's a great question. Um, if you're asking if there's a particular toolbox that you can pick up off the shelf and get going with, the answer is no. What people need to get comfortable with or try to get comfortable with is that at the foundation of everything diversity, equity, and inclusion is self-reflection,
Mm,
right? So a lot of the work that I do with folks is to start with self-reflection. How can we put ourselves out there to learn about others when we haven't explored who we are as individuals and what our passions, goals, desires, questions, voids in many cases are that we would like to bridge the gap on? You got to self-reflect, and you also have to self-reflect on an emotional level.
yeah.
I'm uncomfortable on certain topics. I'm uncomfortable engaging with certain types of people. Why is that? And how, not that you have to come up with the solution, but
Mm,
how do I communicate
yeah.
around that? So it's self-reflection. It's setting the foundation for folks that are going to engage in any specific occasion with you, a safe space that, like, you're going to say something silly. You are Every person
It's
in here is likely going to
it's
say something
guaranteed,
that's
isn't it?
somehow right, that's somehow or another going to offend someone else in the room. But if we can all come in with good intent and name that mistakes that are made with good intent, we can all give grace for and learn and grow together. That's important to establish as well. Then there are, when we're doing diversity, equity, and inclusion work, there are basic vocabulary and premises that go across the realm of DEI that people need to explore. That's that DEI 101. But the real work gets done once you've started the process of self-reflected, created safe space to explore and learn together, given that very foundational understanding of certain terms and concepts. And then the real work begins when you jump in and you share your humanness with one another and figure out what each of us needs in this moment to learn and grow. And my work, I feel it always critical that people leave the space with a plan of action. Having done those steps and engaged in the human contact and further learning, then what am I going to do after I leave this room? What am I going to get checked in with the next time we come around with one another? And yes, there should always be a next time and a next time and a next time. So all of these companies and people and schools that are interested in the one-off, someone's going to come in and talk to us, and life is going to be fantastic and difference will be prioritized. It is a constant, consistent process of self-reflection, safe space, bringing people in to communicate, learn, and grow together. And that's really important, that you be willing as a human being or any institution to commit to that constant and consistent process as well.
And I think it's that being open to the fact that the differences are beautiful, that the differences and the uniqueness of every single individual brings to us the possibility of us expanding our understanding of the world. And in so doing, we are able to create bigger and better solutions for things. It's like when you hear of a group that is working to achieve something and you find out that they never stop to consider that there might be women that have needs that they never knew because it was a group of men only thinking about it. Or how do we expand in so many different ways? And it is bringing in those people who have had a different experience than us. you know
Indeed.
when
Our
we hear,
country has
yeah,
a problem of promoting difference as divisiveness.
yes,
It's a problem. And we need to take our power back and get out there and spread difference as a means of bringing people together,
together.
difference as a means of growth and learning. And you named, quite frankly, very succinctly, where it has to start. We have to have difference around the decision-making tables,
Yes,
period.
period.
And we got to get out of that scarcity mindset that if I share the table, share my power, share my resources with others, that means less for me. That's absolutely wrong and backwards.
Yeah.
And the reverse of the lived experience.
I I I saw a quote on Instagram that was for you, and it said, "Our current education system is built on curriculums that have existed forever with a resilience on testing. Instead of our focus needs to prioritize dynamic social, emotional, and interactive interpersonal skill building in kids to nurture productive human beings for our global society." Um, I I love that. I mean, please share how when you're looking at that and considering how do we overhaul to bring more of that social emotional learning in without it sounding like uh just oh everybody's good. It's a matter of really recognizing that uniqueness, and to me a much more constructive way of here's why somebody may not be good because of what they have experienced. How do we help them to see what they need to change, not necessarily what makes them wrong, but makes them unique in what they have experienced, and there is no way to help them move forward until we help them see what has taken them in a direction that they saw no other opportunity for, you know?
Well, I think that I love that question. And I think that what we have to consider is that foundationally, our schools weren't built for that.
Yeah.
They were built to crank out more employees. And the systems that were built to begin with haven't changed fundamentally for the entirety of our education system, right? So someone somewhere is going to have to be brave enough to break down a system and rebuild it from the ground up to meet the current needs of its participants. And that's what I was saying in terms of social and emotional learning. Down with the curriculums on the side of the core learning that kids do that are social and emotional. We have to figure out how to organically ingrain social emotional learning into curriculum.
Yeah.
And what that starts with, and this country is in a major battle over this, is covering all history, various authors, various mathematicians and scientists, and what they have contributed to the world and their backgrounds and their histories, all of it. But if we can't even fundamentally agree that the things that have happened in this country and beyond are worth discussing honestly and learning from, then we have a fundamental problem. And to be clear, I am not saying that we have to talk about consistent oppressionist history.
No.
With blame and shame. That I'm not here for that.
No.
But there are many lessons to be learned and joyful and wonderful aspects of history that are not covered. My mother's family ended up in Los Angeles out of Tulsa. Oh. They were part of Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
They had to pack up everything they had in the middle of the night and leave.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not interested in sharing the Tulsa riots with students in textbooks as here's another oppressive event. I'm interested in sharing, there was this thriving Black community. Something unfortunate happened, and those people are spread out now throughout the country.
Right.
How do we build more thriving communities that sustain difference?
Yes.
That explore difference, that recognize difference? Those are the conversations that we need to be having in our education system, that until we reevaluate our textbooks, our curriculum, as in what is covered, what's included, what's not, until we do all of that, then we are stuck in this holding pattern. How many times do our kids need to learn about George Washington? And quite frankly, a lot of the myths about his life. And I'm going to take it, Martin Luther King Jr. And a lot of the myths about his life, and how no, Rosa Parks wasn't just tired on a random day. That came after years of precise planning. These are the things we need to get real about and start talking to our kids and teaching them across difference. And once we do that, that then shows them what they need to do to navigate difference and be able to thrive in a world where they will be constantly confronted with it.
And I love how you're talking about taking what could be difficult and horrible and finding how not everyone, but some, at least made a positive change for themselves and continued to grow, so that we can see that it is possible to happen for others. I think we know that there are horrible things happening in the world that we wish we could just eliminate across the board. We know that there are bad people that are doing horrible things that we wish we could eliminate. However, we need to look at the fact that in some instances, we've known some really great people who have also done some horrible things. And and in this instant, we need to focus on how do we make it possible for each and every one today to be the best that they can be today. And that is by seeing what is beautiful and unique about them, that they can leverage to a more positive future for themselves.
And here's a novel concept. How about we go away with the labels of you're a great person, you're a good person, you're a bad person, and focus on humanity itself and allow for the space and grace that on certain days and times, we're all going to make poor decisions. We're going to make amazing decisions.
Yeah.
And everything in between. Yeah. And because I find that very problematic. If we're striving to be good people, and we can't agree on what good is, then we're wasting time with adhering to these false premises and narratives. How about we just figure out who we are and navigate the world accordingly? And how can we make our workspaces, our learning spaces, our living spaces better for who we are and how we navigate them?
Beautiful. Does anybody have anything they would like to ask as a question? I've still got a couple others to ask, because really, to me, how do any of us take and move forward with this? Because when we look at life, what we each have to control is ourselves first. And that's part of what you were talking about with the self-awareness and self-actualization of things that we can move forward in order to even be able to have those discussions about the difficult topics with others. Is there something that you think when you are meeting people that you say, here's where you can make a step for yourself and your community first?
Yeah, it's part of what I was saying before. Here's where you can take a step. Deep breath, grace and kindness to self and others. Pause, because everyone, oh my God, we're in a culture of instant gratification. You need an answer, you pull up your phone, there's Google immediate. You need, oh my gosh, if we need to teach, and especially our youth, teach them for the first time, that it's okay to pause. It's okay to be uncomfortable and to acknowledge discomfort that, oh, our organization, our school, our family has practices and or beliefs that we need to explore. It's okay to do that. It's okay to work through things, and it's certainly okay to not have all the answers. Everyone wants to know, how do I get from point A to point Z? And at point Z, life is going to be perfect. It is not. And the journey in life is getting from point A to point Z as peacefully and fruitfully as possible. So you are going to have to give yourself the space and grace to learn and grow. The other thing that is really important to acknowledge to folks as they are engaging in this work is we're all human.
Mm-hmm.
We are absolutely all human. And until we acknowledge that and the pressures of being human,
Yes.
then how are we expected to dive in and wholeheartedly engage in the work of change, engage in the work of navigating difference? There's no magic pill, there's no magic answer.
Yeah.
And so there's, we are in 2023, the world of consultants, of which I am one. And when I'm meeting with folks, initially, it's important for me to lay the foundation. I do not have the magic pill. I do not have the magic answer, but I can tell you that if you're willing to commit to the work and the honest work, then we can make positive change.
Celia, you have a question for us? Do you want to come off mic and say thank you for being here, my dear?
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to this session. Um, it's nice to share the space with similar conversations. And thank you so much, Collette, for
Yeah.
the amazing way in which it's important for us to focus on diversity. Just to give you an idea, I am the CEO of Rubicon Consulting. I do management consulting for organizations in healthcare and life sciences.
Cool.
I educate, engage, and empower organizations to be truly inclusive from the bathroom to the boardroom. A lot of
I love that.
a lot of times I've seen that organizations are inclusive, but they don't when it comes to people of color who are LGBTQ, especially trans and gender diverse. We currently have my question to you is, I've been doing this education for almost I would say more than 10 years. And I've been in the corporate industry working with different organizations that are truly inclusive, especially when they talk about women of color, neurodiverse. A lot of times they're branding, they're pinkwashing, they're very performative. Now, going back to your experience working in the schools, there are more than 500 anti-LGBTQ bills today in the country in various states where children are not allowed to be who they are. And there's a lack of education. There's so much of, I've been to a lot of school board meetings where you can't be in that room because it's so nasty. And people have even called me a man, in spite of knowing that I'm a trans woman. I've lived my life as a trans woman since I was 4 years, and I'm 54 years now. How are you in the private schools making the difference? Because public schools, we have this nuisance. Private schools are also not that open, especially, I'll give you an example. There's one private school in the place where I live. It's called the Oaks Christian School, where in Westlake.
You're in LA too.
I live in Thousand Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a private school. I've been to Lorena, which is also a private school. My friends' kids have studied, and we go through the same issues there when it comes to trans, queer, and the LGBTQ community as a whole. I mean, it's what is it that you can suggest to break into those conversations or help parents who are struggling when their children have come out in those schools?
Great question. I would like to acknowledge a difference there. There are a lot of private schools that are really diving deep into the work of acknowledging across the LGBTQ spectrum, including trans. But the school that you're naming and beyond, the ones that I don't want to overlabel. The school that you're naming is religious. And we all know that you can use the Bible to justify anything on both sides of any argument, right? And well, we don't all know. Let me take that and name it for me. I say that the Bible can be used to argue on both sides of any argument. And so a lot of people choose to perpetuate harmful arguments hiding behind the Bible, religion, other holy documents, etc. And I think that the key, again, in starting these conversations with folks is to focus on humanness and to get them to understand that, quite frankly, you don't have to live this lifestyle. You don't, and it's not even lifestyle. You don't have to make these life choices. You don't have to accept my life choices. But as a human being, somewhere along the way, you have to accept the difference and navigate it without being harmful, negative, exclusive, etc. And again,
just a correction before you proceed. It's not called a lifestyle or a lifestyle choice. No. People use that because it's very harmful and in the community. I didn't choose. This is not a choice. I'm born this way. I have gender incongruence, like a person who's born blind and saying it's a lifestyle choice or a life choice, or you're disabled or you have ADHD. So I would avoid the usage of lifestyle or life choice because it's not a choice. I was born this way. So just a quick correction before we...
I appreciate that correction. Thank you very much. That is a very important distinction to make. I apologize for my misuse of the words, and thank you for pointing that out. And that's part of that's to me second tier. Like, this isn't a choice, because people like to argue about that. And I'm not trying to open the door for that initially with folks, because then you get sidetracked and people aren't really getting at the issue that if you're a human being, then you need to let human beings live, period. And that, like I said, that does not mean that you were born into this way and I was born into this way and never the twain shall meet. But it does mean that we have to figure out how to exist peacefully and respectfully, so that whatever we are given in life and whatever choices we make in life coming out of what we're given, and a lot of life isn't choices, right? You're born into poverty. It's not like you're choosing to remain there. The systems are stacked against you from getting out of a life of poverty. So whatever the lives we are living, we have to figure out how to navigate difference in order to obtain peace and the ability to live our lives. And that's at the core of the work that needs to be done, extracting all of the other distractions, religion, laws, choice versus not choice, all these things. Those are distractions. Human beings, you can't, based on whatever your principles are, say that you value human life and then disregard people's lives when you choose for flawed and silly and what you might believe are just wholehearted reasons. That's not how it works. And that's the work of, hey, let's self-reflect for a minute. What's going on with you that you can't see this person as human in this moment? And let's figure that out so we can navigate that piece. and
Thank
bring
you.
it back to humanness. Absolutely.
Thank
And
you. I think what I got from this conversation, we need to humanize, not politicize.
yes,
Correct.
absolutely. Thank you
Right.
both for bringing that forth in this conversation. And I think it is figuring out the value points that we can find as common between people that we have complete differences with on so many other levels. That when we can find that 1 or 2 points of commonality, that we can start a discussion that allows us to start those unravelings of misunderstandings based on misinformation they may have had for years. You know, what they called a lifestyle was what they were told it is, not a reflection of what life is for you, Cecilia. It is it is their misunderstanding of where that word comes to play in their thought process that makes it completely difficult for them to understand you didn't have a choice in this. It is truly finding those commonalities in small ways that allow somebody to all of a sudden go, wow, I can see this in you that I was not able to see before. And sometimes it is a, a loss of something that they had previously that all of a sudden it comes out as a, oh, now I can look at this from a different perspective. And that different perspective allows me to see things in a beautiful way. And I thank you both for doing this in open conversation to bring up the points. For Celia to say, I heard a word that didn't
Mhm,
resonate well for me,
mhm.
and I could, in this safe environment, start to talk about how do I change that for others who can't hear it. And for Collette to be able to say, oh, I in no way meant to mean I see it that way, but I hear it that way from others, and their misjudgment is frequently sending us down a path that is hurtful to you. So thank you both for doing this beautifully
Absolutely.
here. We've got
Absolutely.
about 15 minutes. Did we uh, come to a feeling of completing that question for you, Celia? That we could maybe move on to if anybody else has
Yeah,
a question they
absolutely.
want to bring
I
up.
do actually want to
Thank
say
you.
one thing to you.
Oh,
Is
please.
it Celia or Celia?
Celia is the right way to say it.
Okay. I,
Thank you
I
for
do wish
correcting
to
me.
say one more thing to you, Celia, and to the group as a whole. I also don't want to overstate seeking out humanity. There are certain people where you just need to walk away from them. Because trying to establish humanity and self-reflection, etc., they're not having it. And trust your intuition and your assessment and walk away. And that doesn't make us any less. It doesn't make the movement any less. It just means that you, for me, that I am just choosing to bestow my energy and my gifts upon someone who's willing to show me the very little bit of a crack in their souls that might open up to more. But if someone is staunchly, and there are people out there that find joy with being contrarian, and none of us have the space or grace to take that on wholeheartedly and walk away.
I know I usually say this, I put that in the chat too. You can educate people who are ignorant, but you cannot educate those who are arrogant. Um, and I always remember that. Thank you for stating that in a nice way.
Yeah.
But I like the grace approach. I think that the first time I'm hearing in a diversity conversation about grace.
Yeah.
People don't talk about it because my wife took 17 years to accept me, when I came out. So it took a lot of work, grace, patience
Mhm.
to work with her. Now she's my biggest ally. We've been married for 26 years. She's cisgender. My daughter, she accepted me in 25 minutes. There's such a big difference when you see the younger generation. She's a Gen Z, and my wife is, Gen X. There's such a big difference even in the age gap, and they accept you. And I advocate for brown women in the workplace. Every day, my wife and I, we have a coaching session. I keep telling her, tell this to your boss, do this to her with imposter syndrome. So it's interesting
Mhm. Mhm.
I believe in allyship. That's the only way we can change the world.
Agreed. Agreed.
Any other questions out there?
Yes, my question is, Sunny, is your hair still that beautiful pink? And you can tell us in the chat. I'm not trying to get you to come off camera, but cool.
Beautiful.
Very
Love seeing your smiling face, Sunny.
cool.
I'll just take the
Collette, I
opportunity
know.
to thank everyone, if that's okay. Just it's been such a rich conversation, and I feel really honored to witness people sharing honestly and vulnerably, and people who are these are big conversations, and it's really important that people are out there in action. So thank you for all that you guys are all doing to move this forward.
Thank you for joining us.
I love that this group is always open to that, is willing to take on those difficult conversations and own them for what they are. Own your own mistakes, as Collette had pointed out. None of us are ever free of mistakes, and frequently they don't come from a malicious attitude. They come from an ignorance that hasn't been shared with us in a way for us to recognize where that is. And even when we have been in conversation with others to make us aware of it, we frequently never get it on the first try. And we may think we have reframed it in a way that allows somebody to hear it in a new way. However, they may still, because of the length of time that they have been negated in other situations, have a very difficult time hearing something without it registering more from their past experience than, they will take it as an inferred issue, even when it wasn't implied in that specific conversation. I mean, I know I have sat in a room where later someone told me, we thought it was a very open and honest conversation. And she later said, I wasn't comfortable to share because Susan was there and she wasn't Black. And so I didn't feel I could, share in a way because she was afraid of what judgment I might hold. And that becomes part of the unlocking that we need to do with each other, to understand that in the same way you feel someone is judging you, that you are also making the assumption of what direction they might take any of your comments. And we have to be bold enough to sometimes step forward and say, I'm not, as you said, I'm not comfortable with this. However, I need to bring it forth. And when we can do that in a beautiful way, we help to create that social, emotional engagement that allows all of us to be seen for our uniqueness and appreciated for what we bring in insights and beautiful experience. And I think education is really where that's at, whether that's education in the school system, education in the office, education in the church, education in life. We all need to bring these things together in a way that allows us to openly see the beauty of each individual and understand the power of what their experience has been that brings them to where they are in this moment. Collette, we have about 7 minutes left.
Yes.
What would you like to share with us? I don't see any additional questions in there. Celia, I love that, and I may have screwed up your name one more time because I am horrible at that. But thank you for putting your connections in the chat so that we can stay connected with you. If any of the rest of you would like to do that, if you've got a LinkedIn you want to share so that we can be connected. And Collette, if you have contact information you would like to share with this group so people know how best to reach you or get involved with your educational systems and movements that we could help you to move things forward.
Cool. I will put it in towards the end where I can actually focus.
Yeah, I get that.
That
I get that.
information to you. Thank you. I realized that the conversation didn't focus a whole lot on education and education systems per se. And that is exactly my point, that DEI, difference, etc., can't be segmented. And it's work that we have to do individually and collectively so that it organically spills over into the designing and planning and executing that we're doing in our schools, in our workspaces, in our homes. So that my goal, like I said, my goal is that this becomes a natural way of life, that we are cognizant of, aware of, accepting of difference as just a normal part of our life, instead of using it to weaponize and further capitalist gains or political gains or divisive gains.
So beautifully said. So beautifully said. Because I agree wholeheartedly. It is so powerful when we can look at it across the board in life, in all aspects. And families frequently, because of feeling limited in their exposure in different aspects, are looking for ways that they can bring this in a more powerful way with respect to what they have had from their family experience, and share it in a way that can be seen in a very open way for others to understand what makes them different and unique. And I think these sort of conversations that we're having today allow us to do that. And the more we can understand and share in a very thoughtful, progressive way of listening to actually hear instead of listening to react.
Correct.
Right now, it seems like there's a lot of stuff out there in social media and other places where the minute somebody starts to say something, somebody else is already screaming at them as a reaction to what their past experience or past learning was, instead of an openness to hearing what is unique about them that there might be some commonality to.
I will say to you, if you take one takeaway of what you can be working on to further the exploration of difference, it's active listening. It is such a lost art. We are constantly not listening to people because we're formulating our defensive arguments rather than truly pausing to hear what they are saying. I could have easily shut it off in my head when Celia was trying to give me a perspective and been like, oh, wait, that's not what I meant. It's who cares what I meant? Intent versus impact. My intention was not to offend, but the impact was that she heard something and needed to correct it. Thank you for doing that, because we have to be aware of intent versus impact and cultivate active learning so that we can truly hear what it is that people are saying as a means of learning and growing, period.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So I just put in there active listening as a first step to understanding other point of view for active learning. It's a beautiful way for you to frame this up. And I thank you so much for being here as part of this. I am thrilled that several of you were here today, whether you made a statement or just were open to listening to us as we talked about it. I really, really appreciate the fact that so many of you are people I have seen here before and heard here before, and are open to continue this discussion with us, because to me, this is the power of what we need to do to make the world a more cohesively beautiful place for all of us. And I truly hope that we can all be part of making that happen. So I'm going to say thank you and stop the recording.
Mm-hmm.